right, so you're still on the AM show, and this morning we started October with some rains. It's been raining in parts of Accra, at least that's what I know. And I'm not sure what it is like in other parts of the country. And so we asked you to share with us what the situation is like in your neck of the woods. And so let's get on to Facebook and see what some of you have been saying about what the situation is. And John says, are we sure it rains? No, I do bad thing, water. Okay, so clearly that's not it. You're just trying to be sarcastic there. Okay, so Thomas says, are you complaining or telling us everything in Ghana, Joinis is doing politics with it, now you are complaining? Okay, we're asking you to tell us what the situation is like in your neck of the woods. I don't know why that will be a complaint. Okay, Nyame Betre, Michael Fuzo, Nyame Betre Republic, Moto, Ghana is second Israel. I don't get that one. Citizen says, how do we share pictures when you have disabled picture sharing button on your page? Is that the situation? Let's look at that. And efforts, Salami says, efforts must be made to divert the flow of water. Long distance flow is not helpful. Nana Mensa says, Salt Pond is now receiving its share of the rains. Okay, so it's raining in Salt Pond as well. And let's move on. Kingsley says, okay, been raining in Cape Coast. Faith Love says it's been raining in Cape Coast for hours. And Wunam says, in my area, nothing happened. That's spin 6. Okay. All right. So clearly it's not the whole of Accra that it's experiencing the rain. It's some parts of Accra. And we have actually gotten some videos from Carnation First Light, which we're going to share with you in a bit. So there you see that the road was submerged because they had water all over it. The rain had caused some puddles of water. In fact, the road essentially was down and completely submerged, making motoring difficult. So that's one of the videos that you have there. So part of the road is taking over, and the vehicles are having to drive through it. All right, so the music you hear there is actually not coming from us. It's the person who filmed the situation and sent it to us. So that's where the music is coming from. But yeah, we have a number of these videos coming through. So here's another one where you can see the road has been overtaken by, I won't call it floods really, it's just the water, the downpour has taken over. Here's another video. All right, so this is actually live from Avena. So the situation has, well, eased considerably, even though you can expect that there's some water on the road as well. And you can expect that this is going to slow down traffic. So wherever you're headed, you'd just have to take note that it's going to take you a bit longer than usual. If your vehicle is that low, then it means you have a low clearance. It means you have to be mindful and don't venture into any water you come across. All right, so we have Adum TV's Dache Hene. He's been in parts of the city and he's joining us to tell us what the situation is like. So Dache Hene, Nane Alai, where are you and what's the situation where you are? Hello, Nanea, where are you and what's the situation where you are?
Can hear me? Israel, if you can hear me, I am well located at the office very close to ECG. That's where I am now at Avena Junction. Now, the issues relating to flood in Ghana or in Accra have become something that we have become acquainted to each and every year. And whenever it rains, we know that there are always flood. Now, when you come to the Avena Junction, the situation here is that there is flood here, and then the traffic is mounting. From the time we got here, you could see that the traffic is mounting here. Now, the situation has been that there is a bigger drain that is supposed to carry this water to its location. But now the situation is that the drain have been destroyed. Now, it is very difficult for this water to find its way into the bigger drain wherever it is coming from. So the situation on the ground is that now the water has found its way onto the road. And so the drivers who are particularly using this road are finding it difficult to tread on the road. Now the situation is that because they are finding it very difficult, there is a heavy traffic on this particular stretch when you are moving from the industrial area heading toward Circle. The issues have been that even from Kaneshi to Circle, it is very difficult for you to walk freely or to drive freely on the stretch. Drivers we interact with earlier says that it has become something they talk about each and every year, and as such they are not willing to talk to the media again because they don't know or they've not seen any improvement from the previous year since they have been talking about this situation each and every year when it happens. And as such, they are not ready and willing to talk again. But some of the pedestrians who use this road, we would love to interact with them and then ask them as to how they find it difficult to plow this road each and every year. Let me talk to this driver. Like I said before, most of them are not ready and willing to speak to the media. But let me just talk to my brother who have been in traffic for some time now because of this particular rain. Boss, let me ask you, I know you have been in traffic for a while. What is the situation like?
Actually, I'm coming from Kaswa, and you know our situation with the Kaswa Road. So I've been in traffic for almost 1 hour, getting to 1 hour 30 minutes. But then I hope something can be done about the roads, and if other roads we can get access routes to other places, then.
Okay, so Israel, just like I was saying, the situation is not comfortable at all here. You could see where I am really standing, just in the flood as I speak to you. I'm standing here and you can see the situation for yourself. Probably nobody needs to just describe it for you. You could see what is really happening here. And it is just not here, but when you use the other stretch of the road where you are leading to the ECG office, the place is just flooded. So people who are ready to even access the ECG office will find it very, very difficult because the entrance to that particular office has been flooded and drivers are finding it difficult just to use that access or to use that particular stretch of that road. So the situation is uncomfortable. Drivers are complaining. Pedestrians are also complaining because it is very difficult for you to cross to the other side, especially so when you are putting on a shoe. You need to pull off your shoe to be able to cross the flood to the other end so you can go to wherever you want to go. But for the drivers, it is becoming a huge problem because they've been in traffic for almost an hour and more, and they have not seen any improvement from the previous years when they have been talking about this particular situation. So Israel, this is really the situation on the ground from Avena Junction.
That's Adum TV's Dachi Hene, and I bringing us that update from Avena. And as you can tell, the situation is quite worrying. You can see that clearly the road, a section of the road has been cut off because there's water, and so most of the vehicles, or virtually all the vehicles, have to go through that stretch that doesn't have any puddle of water because you're not too sure if you're safe driving through the puddle of water, unless you have a four-wheel drive, which will mean that you can then drive through without any issues. But if you have a vehicle with low clearance, it makes things quite difficult for you. As I indicated earlier, we will be reaching out to the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Fortunately, we have them joining us in studio and have Joe Tete Potofi, Good morning to you, Deputy Director of Forecasting and the Ghana Meteo. And thank you for joining us in the studio. So you're actually promoting your GMET app, which should tell people what if they're in an area that can't experience flooding. Explain that to us and let us know how that works in the light of what we're experiencing right now.
Thank you very much, and good morning for having me.
Good morning.
Yes, we have an app which is called My Flood Risk App Accra.
Okay.
We started it on a pilot basis. We have a Gan East, Gan West, and Accra Metropolitan Assembly. That is AMA.
All right.
This is 3 districts that we are dealing with now. We have the mind of upscaling it, but it will take some time to upscale it to almost all Accra, then to the whole country.
So what does it do if you, for instance, found yourself at a venue right now? Will it tell you that you're in a flood prone or a flood risk area?
Yes, it is an app. And then when you type your location, it will give you the level of the water level at that area.
Okay.
And if the water level will also increase, it will tell you. And you'll be able to see. There are so many things on the app. It will advise you what to do. It also have a numbers that if you are in a situation that you need somebody to help you, you must be able to call those numbers for NADMO, for police, for fire service, so that you'll be able to come to your aid.
Yeah.
In case you have a relative somewhere and you have the app, and you look at the app and you realize where the relative is, it's going to be flood. You can even call somebody to help.
All right.
Yeah, it has so many things to do.
Okay, so let's look at the rains that we had this morning. Are you able to tell us the amount of downpour rain we had this morning? That's in which parts of Ghana experienced it? I know that we got a text, someone telling us that it was raining in Cape Coast. I don't know which other part of the country.
Along the coast, from Kita to Axim, this morning they will have rains. Yesterday till the night, the middle belt and a part of the northern region also has a lot of rain.
That was yesterday.
To today.
To today.
Some areas around Koforidua and then Wenchi and Itevaros are also having some rains as we are speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell how much rain we experienced along the coast?
Yes, some areas had about 25 millimeters of rain.
Okay.
Some had 45 millimeters of rain. Some had just about 10 millimeters of rain along the coast. But for the inland, theirs was heavier than what we are experiencing along the coast.
All right. So are we to expect some more today?
Yes, we are in our minor season, especially the coast and the middle belt are in their minor season. And at times, the minor season will be favored than the major season. So we should expect more rains till we get out of the hood. That will be around second week in November. Okay. Especially along the coast and the middle belt. All right. Then after November, we usher ourselves into the dry Harmattan season.
Okay. So from what you're saying, 45 millimeters, that was the highest in somewhere along the coast.
Yes.
Is that significant enough to cause the kind of flooding we're seeing, especially when it didn't rain for very long?
Yes, it's significant because I was saying that the resilient level of some of the cities now are very low.
Okay.
Because of anthropogenic things that we have been doing. Building structures, pavements, roads, houses, and that sort of thing. So any little rain will cause some flash floods.
Okay, so it's at this point that I'm bringing in Edward, and he's a civil engineer, and he understands these issues. And he, as you heard Mr. Potofi indicate, it's because of the things that we have been doing in Accra. It has reduced the ability of the city to control or contain flooding each time it rains. Good morning to you, Mr. Anand. So I'm sure you would understand better what Mr. Potofi says when he says that because of some of the things we are doing in Accra, the buildings and the rest, we've reduced the ability of the city to control or contain rains each time there's a downpour. Hello, Mr. Anang.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I want to bring you into the conversation. Please explain to us what Mr. Potofi means when he says that because of the way we have built in Accra, the city is not able to contain water each time it rains.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Annan, I'm sure you can you hear me?
Hearing you, there is a disconnect between my laptop and then what is happening on the TV. It appears.
Okay, so you're supposed to listen to it on your laptop, actually.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so explain to us what is happening and why Accra can't contain that much water now.
Yes, you have a. Yes, I'm there. You have the drains serving Accra. Good.
Or maybe, Mr. Anna, maybe what you should do is to turn off your TV, because I think you're hearing yourself in the TV and it's disturbing you or distracting you as well. So if you turn off the TV, you can listen to us on the laptop, and it makes things a lot easier.
We have drains serving Accra.
All right.
The major one is the Odo drain. Now, much of the runoff or the flood that comes to Accra are from the region. Now, what happens is that there have been studies to see what should be the solution to the flooding. And one key recommendation was that there should be some detention basins upstream before the water enters the Accra region. Now, what has happened is that those places which have been earmarked for these detention basins, which will hold the water for some time before releasing gradually into the drains within Accra, those places have been encroached upon. They are now people's properties. And therefore, there will be the need either to break down some of those structures and create those ponds to hold the water before releasing into the Odo drain, for instance. And so if we don't do that, then all the flood that comes from the regions will just flow into Accra. And because our drains are not that large, they'll be overflowed their boundaries. And then you have it on the street. If you look at the Neiman drain, for instance, it becomes rectangular up to a certain point. Then it becomes trapezoidal. Then it goes getting towards the Odo drain, it becomes rectangular again. So now, from the transition from the trapezoidal into the rectangular section, the flood becomes too much for the rectangular section. And because the sides are also encroached, you cannot widen it anymore. And therefore, it flows onto the roads. And so, because of the buildings in Accra, you have a lot of these standards not being able to widen. So it's a big problem. So that is what Mr. Potofi is talking about.
Okay, so
you have buildings which are sized for a certain flood. Now, what is coming is more than that. And then, because of the transition from one section to another, the lower sections are not able to carry what is coming from the upper sections. And therefore, it flows onto the road.
Okay, so you're talking about the Nima situation, but we also have the Carnation First Light situation, where we're seeing that each time it rains, you get the water taking over the road. Are you able to explain what is happening on that stretch as well?
Yes. Some of them, too, you have what we call cross culverts, where the stream is flowing towards the road, and you have to transfer it from one side of the road to the other. But then the cross culverts are smaller, and therefore it cannot carry the amount of flood that is coming from the upstream. And therefore it becomes a bottleneck. Instead of just passing the water to the other side, it is not. And therefore it flows on top of the road, and it becomes a problem for motorists. So you have that.
Okay.
And some of the things too were sized only for the roads, not taking the water that runoff from the adjoining properties. And therefore, that also becomes a problem.
Okay, so from what you're explaining, you have the drains or the rain pouring or the runoff water coming from one side of the road. It's supposed to go underneath, under the road. The drains there, it's supposed to go underneath it. But then if it's not, they are not large enough, then it means you can't have the water going down, or some will go down, but a lot of it will also go over.
The remaining one will go over.
Okay. How do you deal with a challenge like that? Do we have to widen the drains down there?
If you want to, it is the cross cover which is a problem. And because it is under the road, if you want to increase that size, you will have to cut the road and maybe put another cell before you can take the flood that is coming from the upstream. You get it?
There used to be a similar challenge. I don't know if the same thing around on the George Walker Bush, around the tallow oil office.
That's right.
That has been resolved. How did they resolve it? Can't we bring that same technology there?
I think a similar thing was done. I'm sure they might have used a truss body to go under the road and you go under the road and create another cell adjoining the previous ones. Then you can solve it. There's a special technology for doing that.
Okay. So that is Carnation First Light. But so we had Carnation First, the issue about Carnation First Light. But if you also, if you were listening, I don't know if you were paying attention, but there was one other motorist who was speaking with, and he was talking about the situation on the Kaswa Road. And he says that also is a problem each time it rains. I know there's one particular spot on that Kaswa Road that is quite problematic. Is there a solution, or is there something we can do immediately?
Which part of the Kaswa Road? Because I know there's one big drain there, or it's almost a bridge, where the overflow from the dam will normally pass. Now,
okay, so there's a place just after the toll booth. That's where you tend to get the challenge.
Okay, that's actually a low point. The low point. So we ought to have a cross cover there. Now, if the cross cover, like I'm saying, has not been designed to take that large quantity of flood, then you have that bottleneck. And you will have to go back and add another cell to that one. And then you can pass the runner. So a lot of work has to be done.
All right, so it looks like there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done, and this has to be a lot more comprehensive. There are no quick fixes, essentially.
No, there are no quick fixes. You can do that. Either you block the road and do it in push, maybe you pick one carriage and then you do it, and then transfer the traffic to the other side, and then continue with that. Or use the truss body, where the vehicles can still plow, but people are working underneath the road. That is more costly anyway, but it solves the problem.
All right, but ultimately, you say we would need to look at the retention ponds.
That is to stop the flow or reduce the flow that comes into our drains upstream. It will hold the flood water for some time. And then when the levels of the water in the drains are gone down, then this one can start releasing into our drain. Then we don't have flooding. Because the capacity of our drains are such that they can't take so much. So you create the detention basins, which will hold much of the flood that is coming back for some time, and then start releasing gradually into our drain. Then you can solve much of the problem.
So one other challenge that has been cited has to do with the construction of buildings in waterways. would you, is it feasible to say that we're going to demolish some of these structures? All right, so the network there is gone off. So I'll come back to you, Mr. Portofi. So we heard Mr. Anand suggest a number of ways we can do this. He talks about the water retention, the flood retention ponds.
Yes.
And but you also talk about the construction of the siting of buildings in waterways. Would you recommend that we demolish some of these?
Very well, because I believe the building and construction code, when you get a plot, I think part of it should be green. But none of us have been doing it. Because when it is green, the water will percolate into the soil. But once you pave, everybody build and pave his house, then you have a lot of runoff coming in. And what he said is very true, because nature itself created some receptive ponds for us. But now we've cleared all of them. Anywhere you hear Jaw, Jaw means valley. So if it is Jawulu, it means big valley. Malajo is valley. So that at least the water that is coming from the eastern corridors all the way must pass through Accra before getting into the sea. And once we don't create those ponds, when we create those ponds, it will hold the water for some time, and then it will be discharging it bit by bit. For that, and I think this project has come to try to solve that problem, what we call the Greater Accra Resilient Integrated Development Project, GARID.
All right.
It's a well-bound project that we are also on it. We are doing the component of the flood, early warning flood systems. Then others are also looking at the engineering and structural engineering. So they have they've got some places that they want to do the detention ponds now. And we believe that by the close of that project, the resilient level of Accra will improve a little. But I think the building code should be also adhered to. That at least when you build, leave some place for green. Everybody should leave some place for green. The moment you paved, you tile your house, the water must run somewhere. And the drainage system that we are having are old drainage systems. They cannot withhold the amount of water that is coming now. At the end of the day, to run to our street and destroy our street and then get flood. So we believe that if laws are really adhered to, those who build on waterways too, if it is possible, they should clear them so that at least the water will find its way and move into the sea.
You know, the same way you say that people are not adhering to the building code, same way some people have been given permits to build in the waterways. So if they built in the waterways, it's not difficult for, I mean, you can't just go and demolish it. If you have to demolish, once you give them the permit, you'd have to compensate them before you get, but I'd like us to go over the bit where you say for each person or for each house that you're building, according to the building code, you're supposed to leave a section where water can percolate. So you don't pave the entire area. Otherwise, like you're explaining, if it rains, the water that should have drained into your soil runs out of your house and it has to find a way. Yeah. It has to go into a drain. If the drain is not large enough to contain it, then it means you're creating a flooding situation before it actually gets wherever it has to get to. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. But I also want you to pick your thoughts on maybe any advice that you have for people who find themselves in a situation, flood-prone area, for instance. So they go onto the app that you have, and the app is telling them that you have a high or moderate risk.
Yeah.
What are they supposed to do?
Yes, if it is a high risk, then either you call, or even if you are going towards that area, you avoid that area. It is very, very important. Because when I look at the pictures, I realize that even the outdoor, the water level is very high now. So it is not advisable for people to commute to those areas, because when it overflows, it will be very disastrous. So the app will help you, and it will advise you. Even if you are in the midst of the flood, you should be able to call for a help. The engineers and the NADBO guys will come and help you. And I believe when you are living in a flood-prone area, it is your duty to make sure that at least you get a weather forecast. When you get a weather forecast, then you advise yourself. But it's like some of us don't even care about the weather. And when you don't care about the weather, then the weather will also not care about you. So this is the opportunity for all of us to make sure that at least in the morning we get the weather, we get how the outlook will look like. We look at where it will rain, where it will not rain, and then we don't commute to those areas. Yeah. Because life and property are very essential.
So something interesting that you said, if you don't care about the weather will not care about you. Is it a line you use at the Ghana Met you? So how do people get access to this app?
The app is on the Google Play Store.
Okay.
And then you just go, then you download.
What's the name for it again?
It's the Accra Risk Flood app.
Accra Risk Flood app.
Yes.
So you get onto Google Play Store, you download. And
it has so many features. It can even tell you what to do. There are places where it tells you when it is flooding, what causes flooding, things that you could do to prevent flooding. When you're in the midst of flood, what you should do. It has so many things, a lot of things on it.
All right.
Yes, and it has a place that you can even give us a feedback. If you're in an area that you experience something, you can give it a feedback. Those at the back room will be able to see it and then see how best they can. And the feedback is very important for us.
All right.
If you give it the feedback, we will enhance and then, how do we call it, modify whatever we are doing. If you don't get the feedback, we assume everything is right.
Okay.
If we say it will rain and it doesn't rain at your end, please, just tell us. Find a way of telling us. Then we can also improve our operations. Okay. It's very important.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe Tete Potofi.